beautiful ones. My intention with the Shamangelic Healing Podcast is to be a platform that explores real-life issues and provides you with valuable insights and practical tools to support you on your journey of healing core wounds and reclaiming your power and manifesting a thriving, impactful life that you absolutely love. You see, it's my dream to inspire millions to shine. So if you find these topics valuable, please take a moment and share the podcast and leave us a rave review. This helps the podcast grow and reach the people that would greatly benefit from these insights. Thank you so much for tuning in and investing in your personal development. I'm right here walking this journey with you. So let's dive into this episode. Personal growth does not have to be a painful journey. It can be a fun adventure. And in today's episode, we're going to explore how to overcome and face your fears when you're navigating life changes, like a career shift or evolving relationships, or when you're navigating health issues. My guests today, Adam and Vanessa Lambert from Be the Wellness, and that's BEE, the Wellness, and they have a fantastic podcast. And they are functional fitness and fearless living experts. And I just adore the two of them. And I was on their podcast. It was a deep conversation about their experience with the healing journey that I did, a Shamangelic breathwork where they were participants. So go check out their podcast. They're super sweet souls. And they really put the fun back in functional fitness and really embody, with their coaching and their retreats, fearless living. So in today's episode, we talk about facing your fears and meeting your edge and building your supportive community and knowing your passionate why when you're facing and overcoming your fears. So I know you're going to love them and this podcast. And just a reminder to go check the links in the podcast page, because there is a free gift there, a quantum guided visualization to help you overcome fears with a positive mindset. So go grab that free gift. I know you're going to love this episode, so let's dive in. Welcome, beautiful bees. This is such an honor to have Adam and Vanessa Lambert in the house, and so grateful for the opportunity to dive into an amazing epic conversation with you guys. We just had the opportunity to do Shamangelic breathwork last night, and so I've had the blessing of holding space for each of you, and you're such beautiful and radiant souls. We just dropped an epic conversation on your podcast. So people are going to have to go over to Be the Wellness podcast and listen to that. And so it's such an honor to have both of you here. Vanessa, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Yes, Adam, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, we've already had this
We've been
gift.
in ceremony for for 24 hours, it feels like.
And so I want to acknowledge the what you're bringing, both of you, in the work that you've done individually and that you're weaving together your medicine to really help people. And what we're going to share today is about meeting your edge and facing your fears and kind of tapping, that part of us that is afraid to change or afraid to evolve or afraid to grow or afraid to face our fears or go after our dreams. And we're going to dive into fears a little bit and how you guys have just, really created a whole system for addressing fears and overcoming that in a playful and an adventurous way. And so I'm all about play and adventure and in personal empowerment. This is why we play so well in this space together. So what is your platform for really helping people navigate overcoming their fears?
Well, I think one of the things we really have honed in on over the many years that we've been at this is training your body and mind for the greater experience of life. And I think so many of us get caught in self-help. We can get caught in the self-help loop of always feeling like I'm never quite enough, or once I fix this thing, then I can allow myself to play, or then I can allow myself freedom or fun or any of those things. And we just really believe that those things can be intertwined, that, freedom and fun and playfulness can also be part of transformation, and that it's not one lane or another. And so for us, it's really been about doing the deep work physically and emotionally and mentally and all of that stuff, but really taking it out into the world and allowing yourself to experience all the hard work you've done and all of the growth you've experienced, and allowing yourself the pleasure of this life and all of the beauty that is around you every day. And so for us, it's really body, mind for the experience of life.
Yes. And this is integration. We do this for a reason. And, transformation doesn't have to be painful and horrific all the time. It's like drudgery. It can be this great, joyful, adventurous experience with the integration, I think, is so important, so that what you're learning at all of these retreats or workshops or coaching has a place to ground and integrate.
To land, and it's one of the things that we see, because it can be a little bit confusing, right? Somebody lands on our website and they're like, what do these guys do? Are they like strength and conditioning coaches? Are they nutrition coaches? Is this meditation? But then there's these retreats. Like, what's going on?
Yes.
And yes, the answer is yes. And the reason that it's kind of that broad is that, you really have to meet people kind of where they are. And especially, change is the thing that is constant and is also we just fear dramatically, right? We're like, oh my God, what's going to be different? Something's going to be different. I know I want to change, but then it's going to be different and I don't know what to expect. And so when we're getting the ball rolling for somebody in a major transformation in their life, meeting them where they are is a really important factor for us in the way that we like to coach. And so for someone, that might mean that they're going to get a new strength and conditioning plan because they're, I've been in shape in the past and I'm a little out of shape and it's something that I'm kind of comfortable with and I really just need to get back on the wagon. Okay, then that's the lever that we're going to pull first, to get the momentum of change and to get that trust and rapport and all the things we were talking about in the last podcast built with something that people are familiar with. And once the inertia is there, once the ball of change is rolling, then you can start to peel away the layers and why is it that you're so worried about losing that last 2% of body fat? Like, where does that come up for you? Are you a competitive, bodybuilder? Like, what's going on? Oh, no, I just like this or like this. Okay, so why? Where is all of that? And in that process, people tend to discover what's really going on, what part of them is unhappy with the way that they are and why they might want this change, So it's all about finding that lever, and which one is going to get the ball rolling first.
And so one of those levers is physicality and getting them into the fitness of the body and, and working on their health at a physical level. Right. And so that includes potentially conditioning and also nutrition, training. Okay. And since we're talking about fears and meeting your edge and fears, what fears do you think come up when you're addressing physicality and fitness and health? What are the fears that come up around that?
So there's usually one of two things. There's either a fear of the physical work, right? So somebody wants to get in better shape, but they're afraid to go to the gym because they don't know what they're doing, right? So there's a fear of rejection, a fear of looking dumb, a fear of getting injured, which is probably the most valid of all of them, and so, which is real. So there's a fear of actually doing it. Or the other thing that can happen in the physicality space is that there's something that they want to achieve in their life, but they are afraid that they physically can't. Right? And so those are the two things that we see. And often it's, I want to do this thing. And we use Machu Picchu, the Salcantay trek to Machu Picchu is one of the retreats that we do as an example of this because it's arduous and it's up and over 15,000 feet and it's a hell of a hike. And so people say, it's on a bucket list. This is something I really want to do, but I'm just afraid that I can't. I don't have the physicality to do it. And you say, okay, well, we can provide that for you. Let's talk about how to train for this. And then the next fear comes in of, I am afraid of going to the gym, right? So it's usually one or the other or both of these things that start to show up for folks. And then it's just about providing them with the incremental steps to give them the confidence to do the work, you know?
Right. And I think that the other fear that you talked about that's underneath that, it can be a fear of rejection, or a fear I'm going to look stupid, or a fear I'm not going to be able to do it. And those are kind of more the emotional, energetic fears of not just physically whether or not I can succeed, but also when I was strong or fit before, what happened, you know? Or if I never was and always tried and never could, and it's been elusive so far, and I've always been the heavier kid, or and been judged for that, is like I don't have the fear of I don't have an identity for myself as a fit person, and so it can go that way as well.
100%. Yeah. And that's, and this is part of, a company and what your business and all this is always an evolution, right? And we really started firmly in nutrition coaching. And then there was some amount of strength and conditioning stuff that came along with that, because you're like, okay, well, exercise is a big deal, and it makes everything easier, as you go along. And then not long after, it became obvious that there needed to be this more what has become the Authentic Self program that Vanessa runs, which is this look at these inner decisions and who you are and who you're showing up as and what your stories are and like what's really going on under there. You know what I mean?
They're not connected.
No. It turns out,
your physicality is not separate.
Yeah.
And so, thank you guys for your coaching and your programs, integrating those pieces, because I think so many keep them separate, and then the results are fleeting or short term and not sustainable, or people don't get the results because they quit, because the emotional aspect of it, the authentic self is not in alignment. And so it doesn't matter, even if it's the most awesome fitness program, there's other fears there. And I love that your work integrates those pieces. And so, with the authentic work, self work, Vanessa, what fears are underneath that people are dealing with? Do you find what are the common stories that arise when you're working with people?
Yeah, will I be accepted? Will I be accepted is always a big one, and I think. At the root of that is, will I be loved? Am I lovable? Am I worthy of love? And I think that our stories, we have all of these stories about who we are. And if we can just take a moment to really almost zoom out, I love the term zoom out, right? It's like, let's just back up a little bit and look at these stories we have about ourselves and decide if we want to keep or toss them. Are these really our stories? Did we inherit it? Was it given to us? Was it, do we feel pressured to have this story, or is it really who we are? And I think that that for me is always the biggest thing to distinguish for people right out the gate is this really your story? And do you want to keep it? Because I think that until you even have an awareness that you have a story, and we were talking about this before, right? That first level is just awareness to what is, then we really can't make any profound changes. I mean, we see this all the time, and it's what Adam was saying. This was such an outgrowth of our physical training and how we were helping people mold themselves physically, because we would see that they would get a certain distance away from what their core truths were about themselves, and they just couldn't sustain it. They would just snap back to it, And so until you really give people an opportunity to look at their core truths and look at their stories, they can only get so far. And eventually you'll when life gets busy or things get tough, you'll default back to those settings. And so for me, it's always about, let's do the groundwork. Let's take the time to just be in awareness about our stories and see if we can start to create and script our lives in the way that is a new, updated, authentic version of who we are when we're fully expressed.
And so what I'm hearing, this is about the mindset now, because we've talked about the physicality of it, and that authentic self is woven into how we see ourselves and what story we're playing about what is true or capable or lovable or worthy within ourselves, and what is possible. And mindset is so essential because what we believe is possible, we're right. Yes. And if it's impossible, we're right. Yep. And I really enjoy working with mindset as well. And with that mindset around stories, I appreciate what you said about, is this my story? And a lot of times we've just taken on a story that isn't ours. Yeah. It's like, wow, this is how somebody else views me. Or this is my ancestors' story. It's not even how they view me. It's just that I just took on what my father and my grandfather and my grandmother, like I just took on that this is the money story. Yeah. That our family, this is what I know is true. Yes. The money story, or what's possible, or you can't have that kind of stuff, or this is how relationships work. Right. And so a lot of the story has perhaps is adopted from somebody else. Yeah. Or it might have fit a certain time of our life, and it just doesn't fit this next chapter. Or it might fit who we are, but it doesn't fit who we're becoming. Yeah. And so it might have been our story and fit us for a period of time. Right. But I love the up-leveling that says, what aspects of this do you want to keep and what are you wanting to upgrade? And I love the question and the assessment to just check in with the mindset beliefs to be like, is this fitting who you're becoming? Yeah,
yeah. And, our stories can be so powerful. If we are the ones scripting them, then we can script whatever we want, right? It's like, if you look at it in that regard, you're like, wow, I really am the author of my life. But you first have to even have an awareness that there's a pen in your hand. Yeah.
Yes. Right? And that it's not in somebody else's hands.
Right.
Well, and so many of my clients are like, oh, well, my mom's not going to like that. I'm like, you're 40. Right. And you're wondering, that your mom's not going to like that. Like, what's going on here? You don't even have the pen. Right. It's her pen for your life. Yeah. Right. Or whoever, or my partner won't allow that, or that's, well, let me check in with the we first. And where's the I in there? Right. Because even in a healthy relationship, you guys are doing phenomenal work individually and then collectively, and you're in business together, weaving together some phenomenal programs that are making a difference for people, and you still need to be individuals in that and still have to have autonomy in that. Totally. And so even that belief and mindset is that I'm not separate, that I don't have my own path and my own truth. And that was part of the liberation from we were talking about in the Shamangelic breathwork that we did last night is, in the mindset is, am I free from my story? Am I free from limitations? And of course, when we start stretching what is possible, fears are going to come up again. Yes. So let's talk a little bit about that. When people do start to acknowledge or realize or maybe agree with, maybe I could have that dream house, maybe I could be in a healthier relationship, maybe I could be abundant and successful or have the body that I want. And they start making that scary, beautiful, exciting switch to the possibility. Mm-hmm. What fears come up before they've even made a change, just with dreaming of the new possibility, the dream body, the dream life, the dream relationship, the dream bank account? What fears do you feel start to begin to percolate before they've even hit the gym or changed anything in their life?
Yeah. I think, at the root of it, I think it's a fear of rejection is the first thing that shows up. Because as soon as you try to change, the people around you, and it's not to say that you're surrounded by negative people. This is just a tendency. The people around you want to keep you in the box that they're comfortable with. And I think there's a whole crabs in a bucket analogy. Somebody, these crabs, they pull the other ones back down. But that's the deal. And I think it can be very powerful to understand that, because I think that initial fear is that you may not even be able to name it, but fundamentally that you're, by changing and stretching out of who your immediate circle knows you to be, you risk losing them, is the feeling that you get.
And that's legitimate, and it happens often. A lot of my mentors have talked about when you step on to greater levels, you move, when you stretch yourself, when you grow, that the people that want to maintain status quo and want to keep the relationship, you're threatening the relationship. Or their role in your life, if they were an older brother, if they were a guide or a friend or a parent where they've had some influence that makes them feel good and important. If you go off and outgrow me, well, how dare you? And so the fear of rejection is not fantasy here.
No, it's not.
And a lot of times, and I noticed one time when I was growing spiritually, a friend of mine, we were both just kind of growing at the same pace, and then I just had a year where it just like blew up for me, and a lot of things coalesced in such a way that I had a quantum leap year, you know? And I was starting to facilitate more and all of that. And when I was growing, I was looking back to this friend of mine for support, like we used to give each other. Right. And he was the first one to stab me in the back. And I was like, dude, what's up? Yeah. And I said, at a soul level, he's testing my commitment to this, testing my commitment to how serious am I to holding this new vibration. And can I really embody it? He's right there to poke me. At first I was like, you meanie, you're not supposed to do that. And I was like, I could revert back to needing his approval and it was there, and also getting angry and resentful, like, how come you're being mean to me? And it was like, oh, okay, I get this. This is a test. This isn't about him. It isn't about me. It's about, am I really ready to move to this next level of awareness, abundance, whatever it is? And so along your journeys, what price have you paid in your tribe that, friendships perhaps that you outgrew or relationships that had to change? And so can you share with me and the audience how you navigated outgrowing some of your people? That didn't fit who you were becoming.
Yeah, Adam and I have a very similar background in the sense that we grew up in really small towns. And, we got married when we were 25, right? Or 23. You were 25, I was 23. So we're late bloomers for most of our folks that we,
where we grew up.
Yeah, most of our folks are like, wow, you waited a long time to get married.
18's the golden age.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that for us, we kind of early on in our relationship had this thing of like, how do we navigate, some of these old trajectories that we grew up in and smaller towns and that kind of thing. And I think for us, it was always just really about not being in judgment that there's a right or wrong way to do it, and not, it was never a point of making people feel like, well, this is, your way of doing it is not the way we want to do it. But it was just that we wanted to do something different. And I think that's really all it comes down to, is that you can make it right or wrong, you can make it good or bad, but you don't have to. Right. You can just make it that this is the path I want to take, and it might turn a little to the right compared to like maybe what we grew up in and the trajectory that we were exposed to a lot. But we still held such a sweetness and tenderness for that other path too. So it wasn't like, oh, well, screw that, I hate that. It was like, we love that too, and yet we still need an opportunity to express something that is in us that there's no denying. And so I think for us, it was just more about having such respect and love for both paths, but just deciding to choose one.
Yeah, I think that's a big piece of it, is actually making the decision instead of letting it sort of drag out. Because I think in the dragging out of, oh no, we're still on the same path, but I'm just over here, in that drag out is where the real feelings can get hurt and the relationships can get damaged in a way that's completely unnecessary. Versus just kind of saying, this is where I'm going, you know what I mean? And I would love for you to come with me. And if they can, they choose to, then that's great. And if they don't, then it feels like it just sort of changes.
Yeah. This is back to authenticity again, of saying, wow, this part of me is growing. And we can do this wishy-washy thing where we're betraying it and being like, no, really, let's go get drunk and stoned and no, this is totally me still. Like, don't think we're not all good. And then we're betraying self in that place. And because, that's a bigger, deeper fear for us is to disassociate from our truest path. And when we start to find it again, we're just so excited, like, oh my God, I'm passionate about moving forward here. And when we shift the status quo within a relationship, it threatens not only the relationship, it also threatens their status quo and holding on to stagnation as well. And they may not need to or be meant to at this time or ever go on the journey with you. But I think there's something really delicious about honoring, like, this is where I'm going, and not needing to ask permission. Like, is it okay with you? Like, and the invitation to say, hey, do you want to check this out? And it might not be their time or their path. And to allow, like you said, Vanessa, the space to allow that path to be just fine. There doesn't need to be any judgment, like, oh, you're staying in this town, or you're still doing that.
And it's beautiful, to be honest. There's times where I'm jealous, where I'm like, oh, some of the trials and tribulations of having to navigate such uncharted territory can be hard. It can be challenging. And so, I definitely don't think it's a judgment of better or worse. It's just literally what your heart and soul speaks to you to do.
Yeah. And I think there's some piece of it too that, and we see this actually, like, a great example of this happens in nutrition world, and albeit probably to a, it's not as big of a deal, but you see it a lot, is this sort of evangelical nature of, you find a new diet and it works really good for you, and all you want to do is tell all your friends about it, and this is like, this is the best thing that's ever happened, you got to do this, and if you're not doing this, then there's, and it's really easy to get into that sort of evangelical state. Exactly, where you're like, hey, this is the way to go, and come with me, and it's for your own good, and and all of this kind of stuff, and that can be super alienating, and not advised.
Yes. I think everyone here, and perhaps just one or two of you listening, might have tried to force your panacea on somebody else that maybe it wasn't theirs, or it wasn't the right time, or it wasn't ever going to fit them, and thinking that, well, if this works for me right now, it must work for everybody.
Right.
And it's not always the best ever. And this is a level of respect, I think, in the growth process, to be able to respect that this is what's feeding me or where I'm drawn right now, and can I also respect where somebody else is without soapboxing, pushing, or whatever, trying to change, but in that allowing us to be different, and for me still to care deeply about you. And in the authenticity, I realized that when I kind of shifted out of drinking, I realized, wow, I think that I might have just lost a lot of friends because I realized that this is all we have in common. And when I was curious about, hey, do you want to go take a run on the beach? Do you want to go take a hike? Do you want to do something else? Do you want to go to yoga? Do you want to go out to dinner? Do you want to do something else besides this thing? There was like, no, I don't. And I was like, whoa, okay. And so when we're talking about fear, we get to address at this point that, yes, you may outgrow a substance, a lifestyle thing that you used to do on Friday nights. You may outgrow a circle of friends, a habit, a town, a job, and that, yes, that's part of the journey. And that doesn't mean that that has to be a deep loss, because something else is coming to take its place. And there is this value in the left hand of clenching so tight onto the past, the friend, the cosmopolitan, the glass of wine, the bong hit, the whatever, the story, the job, the security, the approval, that it doesn't allow us to reach for what would be the next expression of our tribe, our finances, a career that would suit us better at the next level. And it's not like that was wrong for that stage of life. It fit for that stage of life.
Right.
And not that all of those relationships weren't great for that stage of life, but we have a human need to grow and a human need to change. However, we also have a human fear of those two things as well.
Totally. The one thing I think is important, though, to mention here is that fear is so valid, yet it doesn't have to be that way. And I think some people actually make it that way. They create the story in the way that, okay, I'm committed to growing, so I'm committed that means it's going to have to end my relationship, or it's going to have to. They don't leave room for transformation for even their partners or their friends. And so I think, I hear this a lot in my Authentic Self program is, well, I have this vision for myself. There's no way my husband's ever going to go for it. And in their mind, they're already at, I guess I'm going to have to leave him. You know what I mean? It's like, whoa, pump the brakes here. Like, let's just, let's actually get to the point where you're actually envisioning what you want and getting clear on it and holding space for that being easy and graceful and maybe even fun and playful. And, why are you inventing it in a way where now you're already getting a divorce immediately,
And since we have kids and I can't do that, and it's validating, I can't change.
Right.
And I love that point because, and I've had lots of clients, couples where one is growing and one family where she's like, you know what? I don't want this lifestyle of eating this way and sedating myself at night, and I don't want this lifestyle anymore. And she just started. I'm like, this isn't about. She's like, do I have to divorce him? Right. Exactly. And I was like, you just keep doing the changing. It's not about we have to do this. Back to individuation. What we were talking about earlier is like, but this is my journey, and what happens there is. If it's not met with so much force, like you have to change this, you have to come along with me, but it's just like, wow, she's feeling better.
Right.
She's looking more alive.
Yeah.
If somebody is ready, with those with eyes to see and ears to hear, like may just be curious about, what did you do there in Sedona, or like, we went on this adventure retreat. Like, what are you having? I want what she's having.
Yeah.
If they're ready.
Absolutely.
And at sometimes the disparity will be so great that if the other party is not honoring their change, then it's not so much a safe space. If they're ridiculing it, if they're not supportive of that, even if it's not what they want, then there's that opportunity to say, we don't have to pray to the same God, we don't have to have the same lifestyle until it gets to the point where this is not sustainable anymore. And that's a different thing. And that does come up sometimes. You outgrow something, but you absolutely can do that. And I had a family from the Midwest where she just started changing. She was heavier and she had this little spark about, just... and she went and got a chakra necklace. When she came, she did some work with me in Sedona, and then she got a chakra necklace. And I said, oh, it looks so beautiful. She goes, well, I'm from a small town. I'll have to put it away when I go home. And so she was inching towards facing the fears of the judgment from the congregation won't allow me to wear this. My friends won't like it. My husband won't like it. And so I think when we're facing fears, we're also, the rejection isn't necessarily just with the tribe around, but it's in general, people won't like this, I'm going to be persecuted. And in this growth journey, I found every single one of us has to face validating ourselves over somebody else's criticism, which could be a total stranger on social media. That we give our power. Well, they didn't like my post, or they didn't, like my album, or my whatever, my offering. So I guess I'm doing something wrong. So can we talk a little bit about that, about the fears that we need to face just to honor who we are, and that it's not our voice, our beauty, our grace, our passion. it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. And like, how do you come to peace with people, the haters? I mean, this is a difference between a spouse or a loved one saying, what are you doing? And you're growing too fast and I don't like it. And you grow anyway and you invite them, and if they come, they do, and if they don't, it's cool. And they can throw a tantrum or not, and you're still happy, and you get to practice compassion. But there's another whole part of facing fears and meeting your edge when it comes to like outright haters and criticism.
Well, one of the things that I really love to look at is soul contracts and really looking at the roles. You were talking about your friend before who was testing your commitment to something. And I really, personally, for me, I think that looking at the contract you have with that person is really interesting. Are they forcing you to really get clear on what's important to you and who you are in the world? And so the only way that that person can get at you, that they can really, really, nudge that thing in you, is if you have it inside of yourself already. And so they're just there to point it out and to help you to address it and to really come clean with it and get clear with it. And, I think that is really the best way to deal with haters, is say, what part of this to me feels true? What part of this lives in me that I'm like, yeah, I am embarrassed. I am ashamed. I do feel dumb. Maybe I don't know enough. Maybe I'm a phony. Like, what is the part of you that you believe it's true? And it's not about them at all. It's about you saying, okay, well, how can I heal this thing that thinks I don't have enough value in whatever this thing is that I'm, talking about or addressing or what have you? Because if it doesn't live in you, it'll just roll off your shoulders. I mean, people have said things, it just won't hit, it won't land. You're like, whatever, But if it hits you, it's because it's already in you.
And what I'm hearing is get curious about what the trigger is about.
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
Somebody's judgment comes and they say, who do you think you are?
Yeah.
Like,
You're
is
right.
there any part of that that's true? Even if it's only 0.5%. If it's like, and to sit and to get with that.
Yeah.
And if it's not true, then it's not true.
Yeah.
Even if there's no percent of it, it's just like, no, this is all their insecurity, this is all their stuff. Then we also get to like turn into that and have compassion for the part of that person that has so much pain that would send a verbal dagger so deep.
Absolutely, And it's triggering something in them, a lack of or something. And I really think that most people, what they're mad about is the thing they so desperately want to be but haven't been able to create in their lives. And
so it can be triggering a jealousy or an insecurity in them.
Yeah.
But I think when you're the person that's receiving a comment like that or a criticism like that in something that you're doing, is that it's not about you.
Yeah.
Totally. And to not take things personally.
Yeah.
And I think it also helps to kind of deepen that level of embodiment for, and this is still my message. This is still what's true. You might not like it. You might think it's total bullshit. Right. And you may be right, and I'm still going to speak it.
Yeah.
And a level of claiming that isn't about, they must be right.
Yes.
Because I think I've had the opportunity to practice not giving my power away to say I'm doing something wrong. It's just not always going to be somebody's jam. Yes. And to be okay with not pleasing everybody all the time. And like, that's nice to let go of. Yeah. And to just know, some people won't like it at all. Yeah. Some people think I'm a total kook. And, they've got a point. Yeah. That I'm embracing that. Yeah. I'm a total tree hugger. I talk to animals. And I'm like, I'm going to be way far out to somebody else. And the other thing that I feel the bigger, another piece there is, can I cultivate compassion rather than anger towards this person? Because if I receive it as a dagger, then I'm going to send back anger. Totally. If I'm observing it with compassion, and then I have the opportunity to to send back some love.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I think that's the critical piece, and I mean, you guys have really covered that very way better than I can. But I mean, there's that saying about the wolves, right? The two wolves that live inside, right? And it really is the one you feed the most, you know. And trolls, it's the other thing. Like, just don't feed the trolls. They live under the bridge. Don't feed them, you know. And which are easy things to say, but it's really what you guys said is actually what is meant by that, and that is to take it, look at what it is, see if there's anything that's there for you, and then answer with some kind of compassion for the position that the person's in who sent that, you know.
Because we can have that, don't take it, with a closed heart.
Yeah,
we
for
can
sure.
be like jerk, and so we have taken it if we've gotten an emotional charge. Then we have taken it, and if we're still angry about it, then we did take it, even if it's like, oh, don't give that any weight, but I'm still angry about it, I'm still hurt about it, I'm still telling stories about it.
Right, I'm still not giving it weight actively over here. I don't care about that one.
But did you see that post?
Yeah. You see this that I don't care about?
Yeah. I do think, though, it's interesting because there has been an awareness in me, though, to not shelve anger completely. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I'm just going to put patchouli oil on this and it's all good. Like, once in a while, it feels good to be like, yeah, fuck off. Yeah. You know, like, you just got to give it like a moment, and then it almost like it gives it like, okay, now there's some more space there.
The emotional intelligence in my whole Shamangelic healing practice and in the breath work last night is like, rage has its place, not on social media necessarily, but you know, to really, wow, that hurt, ouch, why did you hurt me? Like, give permission to express, and then get curious, you know, like in a safe space, not lash out on the comments, to just be like, wow, ouch, you know, and process it in a healthy way, not spiritual bypass or emotional bypass. Definitely.
Yeah, exactly. And my mom was very woke, as you'll say, but she was very into helping me learn about this as a really young child. But one of the messages I got was that you shouldn't be angry, that everything should be like, well, let me think about it and let me process it. And so I do think, like, that little anger piece, like, you have to give yourself permission to feel that sometimes and to go there and see what's there instead of just rejecting that emotional scope once in a while. It really does.
Well, and especially if we're all spiritual, the fear can be, I guess I'm not so spiritual, and I must be a fake if I have angry emotions or resentment, or I bitch about something, and I must not be woke in this moment, or I'm not supposed to do that. And I think spiritual bypassing has a lot to do with that. Is not honoring, it's all flowers and rainbows, and you're like, bitch, underneath it all. And so I really appreciate both of what you said there, and it gives us the opportunity to actually hold that new level that you're growing into, and to own it and embody it, and say, my medicine isn't going to be for everybody. And the people that used to be my greatest advocates may ghost. Or I may need to step back, because every time I success or every time I succeed or take a step, or I want to share a victory, here comes from my used to be inner circle someone that says, well, that's ridiculous, you can't do that, and starts raining on your parade. And so let's talk a little bit about when you're making changes and when you're evolving. And you're kind of awakening out of the slumber of playing small, and you're dismantling some stories that no longer fit. How to navigate up-leveling the tribe. Like how to, because, I teach a lot about this, and I talk a lot about this, and I'd love to hear what you guys say and how you coach people that are feeling lonely because they don't want to spend the time because they're dream stealers, but they don't yet have a new tribe, and they feel maybe very isolated and alone, and just kind of default back to hanging out with whoever or just being isolated.
Yeah, and I mean this is the largest obstacle, I think, for change for folks, and especially in the nutrition world, which is just, it all translates, but I'll talk about it from the nutrition perspective because it's the one I'm most familiar with. But you're inspired to make a change in your life, and you're like, whether that's I want to lose weight, or you've got some kind of health problem you're trying to solve, and like the way that I'm going to do it is through nutrition. And you're also happen to be the person who cooks for the family, and the family's not interested at all, and they're like, well, just because you've got a problem doesn't mean that I have a problem, and I want to continue to eat, SpaghettiOs or whatever it is that they enjoy. And so immediately are met with this thing of, if I want to do something for myself, then that is, I'm going to have to swim upstream. And how am I going to do this? Am I going to bring the people with me, or am I going to make 2 different dinners every night, And so this is incredibly common, and it's the, like, I don't want to say maybe the number one factor, when we first talk to a new client about nutrition. Hey, so is it just you? What's going on at home? Oh, yeah, no, I've got a husband and 6 kids, and none of them are interested in this. And you're like, whew, okay, this is going to be a challenge, Or when you have a couple that are like, look, we're going to do this together, and we're super excited about it, And so at the end of the day, it's an individual decision, I think. And there's a real tendency for us to give up our power to the group and say, well, there's no way these guys are going to go along with it, so I'm just not ready yet. Maybe when my kids get out of school, maybe when this happens, then I'll take the time to do the thing that I need to do. And I think that the first decision just needs to be that it's like the distinction between being committed to something and attached to something. Like I'm attached to the idea of changing my diet, but there's all these problems that are in the way. Or I'm committed to changing my diet, and there aren't any problems in the way, And so that internal decision is what is going to steer the rest of the entire experience. Like how committed to it are you, and from what perspective are you coming at this, and allow that to guide the ship. Because you're not going to get everybody on board,
And it's not part of their journey. I think it comes down to a self-love issue, because you were saying earlier, Vanessa, about us wanting love. And if I eat different than you, or if I pray different than you, or if I believe different than you, or I am fitness different than you, do I feel alone? Yeah. And am I committed? Do I love myself enough to make the choice for me? And I did that with my kids, with my family, I make my food and I make their food. Yeah. And I always make whatever I'm eating available. Right. And over the years, like with my family, there's just so many, we would just do Mexican night, burrito bar, because then we can have meat lovers, we can have dairy lovers, we can have gluten lovers, we can have vegan raw and just guacamole people, and that was one of those. We found a way to eat all together so that nobody was feeling left out. But I had to make the commitment to myself that says, this is the way I want to eat for my health, for my choice, for my spirituality, for all of that. And to model that, not to force it, because that of course backfires. Every time I tried to, sneak green powder into my kids, like things, they're like, I can taste this. Yeah. I put it in a cup where you can't see inside, And my son to this day is like, there's no gluten in here, is there? And so, well, and that's a valid thing is the commitment, I think, because you said commitment, so that it can be a respect for, you don't have to join my diet, you don't have to join my fitness program for us to be in the family together. Even couples, you don't have to be on the same thing, but I'm devoted to it for whatever reason, whether it's my health or my energy or my longevity goals, or just for my lifestyles that I don't want to drink anymore, or whatever it is. And I think that there is a self-care commitment to acknowledge that I am sovereign here. Yeah. Finding tribe that also loves to eat this way, where you can share recipes. And I think that that's important, that if you are solo in your tribe, in your family, in your circle, whether it's a spiritual change, whether it's a mindset change, whether it's a lifestyle change, that you also surround yourself with people that are making that choice so that you can cross-pollinate ideas and support, and you can share a lifestyle with people that you do feel in alignment with.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, this is something we see a lot where someone will be trying to make a change. For instance, they're trying to drink less wine, right? Because for all the reasons. And maybe, but their partner doesn't want to. And they want to force their partner into it with them because really their commitment isn't there either. They're like, I don't even want to do this, but I feel like I should, And so you have to find your own alignment first. You have to find your own why and why you're really committed to it. And you just have to get yourself center with it, because if you're not really committed, then you're going to be resentful of your partner who's doing it. You're going to be resentful of anybody around you that's doing any of the things that trigger you, because you don't actually really want to be doing it yourself. And so if you don't really want to be doing it yourself, it's going to be so much more painful. So you have to find, why am I really doing this? And we see this a lot with weight loss, right? Because people have an idea of what they want to look like, but they don't actually really want to do the things it takes to get there. And so to help them realize, why are you so attached to looking a certain way if it's not in alignment with how you love to eat dinner at night, or the way that maybe you do want to have that extra cookie. Maybe it's not, maybe you have an idea about yourself that just keeps you in this turmoil because you're addicted to not being satisfied with who you are inside. And so you just have to really peel these layers back and say, are you actually in alignment around this thing that you think you want to achieve? And if you're not, then just get clear about that first.
Right. And it's really valuable in that place. Know your why.
Yeah.
And in a collective group, whether it's your family or a partner, respect the other person's why.
Yeah.
Know your yes, but also respect their no. Mm-hmm. I don't want to do this. It's far out. I don't feel comfortable with it. And respect that if there isn't a buy-in there, that's okay.
Yeah.
Not to force in that situation. And with tribe, I think it's so necessary as we grow to keep reaching out for different circles that support our dream manifesting, whether it's a fitness dream and a health dream, a spiritual relationship dream, or a lifestyle dream, or a manifestation dream, and that speak that language, that have that mindset. And all of my coaches and teachers are surround yourself with people that you want to be like. Mm-hmm. And is this person achieving the results that you want to achieve? Yeah. And if not, why are you spending so much time? And is this activity, or is this substance, whether it, whatever it is it supporting you getting to where you want to go? And if so, why are you spending so much time doing this activity if it's in direct contrast to where you want to go? Yeah. And so part of the fear might be facing letting go of a creature comfort, such as a glass of wine, or sweets if you're a diabetic, or something like that, or that you might need to take a break from or let go of, or a lifestyle habit. Well, we always did this on Friday night. Yeah. Or I always, smoke a bowl in the morning. Or I always have a glass of wine at night. Yeah. Or I always have dessert after dinner. And so let's talk a little bit about the fears of letting go of something familiar, whether it be a food or a lifestyle, a habit, or a person, or gossip, or bitching or complaining, or negative self-talk, and how to navigate, meeting your edge and facing your fears of, I think that this thing in my life, person, experience, or substance, has met its expiration date maybe a while ago. And now it's definitely no longer a medicine. Yeah. It has become a poison. And how do you meet people in that place where they're they don't want to admit, but they also kind of know, I got to let go of this thing or this person or this situation?
Yeah, this thing's going to have to go. Well, I can share my personal experience, my most recent personal experience with this, and how I went through it. And then Vanessa will be able to backfill all the reasons why this is true, since that seems to be how we work. Yeah. But I worked for the fire department for 22 years. And the last 8 years of that, maybe 10 years of that, if I'm being completely honest, the fit was starting to, or the shoe was wearing thin, so to speak. You know, like it wasn't right for me anymore as I was continuing to go along. And that is that's a business or a job or whatever, a career that is one size, and for good reason. You know, it has to work every single time. Like, people rely on it working every single time, and you need consistency in that world. And I just wasn't fitting the mold anymore as I went along, and it became really obvious, you know, when we started our business and we were doing both things in tandem, it was really interesting to witness that there was all of these parallels, like the energetic feeling that I had of not really fitting in at work anymore, and the work person that I was didn't work in my business, and the business person that I was didn't work in my work, and all of that was just kind of starting to come to a head more and more and more. And the thing that made it okay to switch and you know, completely give up that line of work and go full on into our business was that there was something to fill the gap, you know, and something that I had witnessed, and I think that this happens a lot, is when guys would retire from the job is so all-consuming that most people don't have much outside of the job, and especially emotionally. You know, it's like you spend a lot of time away from home. Usually by the time you're about ready to retire, the kids are gone in school. It's a little empty nestish. You go home to a wife that you probably don't really spend that much time with, you know, and now all of a sudden you're there all the time, and you don't have this sense of who you were, this identity of who you were. And so for me to transition away from this thing that I didn't ultimately fit anymore, I had the luxury, the necessity actually, of a business that fully supported the transition, the transformation from the person that I was to the person who I wanted to become and was becoming, filled that gap completely. So much so that I have people ask me all the time, it's been almost 2 years now that I've been out of the department, ask me all the time, oh, do you miss it? What about this? How was that? I'm like, I don't even think about it. Like, I left, and the job that I was in required some amount of ongoing phone calls with the guy that took my job, you know, for about 4 or 5 months just to be available to him. And every time he would call, I'm like, wait, okay, what? You're like, I just don't even remember. The transition was so smooth, and all of the fear and all of the preamble and oh my God, I can't believe that I'm going to give up the job that everybody wants and wouldn't get it. All of this stuff just went away.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's a transformation, and just the awareness. I thank you for that story, because, you know, for those listening, whether it's a transition out of a career that doesn't fit any longer, or a relationship that doesn't fit any longer, or a relationship to a substance that doesn't fit any longer, what I'm hearing is let's start building. Let your yes, let the new thing build, and it just makes easier to let go of this other thing. Yeah. And that goes back to the left hand and the right hand, and when the left hand is gripping so much, it's not open to receive something new.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and people are so afraid of empty space, you know, because if you have something that occupies all your space, and this is what Adam was referring to with guys who or females who retire, that they had all of that space occupied for them, and now they have to be responsible for filling it. And that can be really intimidating and scary. And so exactly what you're saying is, like, just start finding little kernels of spark that you want to fill some of that space with, or that potential emptiness that is going to come from transitioning out of something. And just start to plant those little seeds and water them. And so, you know, eventually you'll get to the point where Adam did, where it's like, wow, I really can step over the line and I have a full new world, a full new garden that I've been, you know, planting seeds and nurturing for a while. And now it's really fertile for me to step into.
And that's the same thing with a diet. Instead of like, okay, you can't have this and you can't have that. You're no longer a firefighter. You can't, you know, like, it is that. And this is how alcohol left for me. I added in green juice, yoga, and outdoor adventure. I added those things in, and then this just wasn't as appealing. My Saturdays and Sundays, my weekends were for play, not for hangovers. And, and how I wanted to be wasn't matching. The alcohol, I didn't want to be a drunk idiot because I was. I was like, this is not who I respect.
Yeah.
I don't respect this woman that's acting this way, and I don't have to say yes to that. But I just kept adding the good things in, and then this other thing just dropped off, and it wasn't like this claw, like, don't you take that away. And had somebody tried to take away my last drink, which is 20 years ago now, if someone had tried, I'd be in jail. I'm certain I'd be doing time. Because when we're holding on so tight, we don't want to let go of anything. And so part of what I'm hearing is that keep moving towards feeding your dream career, your dream relationship, your dream fitness, your dream finances. Inch towards that, and the lower vibrations just become less attractive, and they show themselves as lower vibrations. And the contrast that starts to show up when you start adding in a higher vibration of something that fits better, something that feels better, and something that provides the momentum of feeling good about yourself and your life, and that the people around you, whether it's a new tribe, that you start adding those as you go, and it feels like learning how to swim can be, let's learn the strokes, let's learn the kicking, let's learn the breathing, let's put our head in the water, comes in steps and not just being thrown into the deep end.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something that we see, there's an incredibly powerful synergy that happens in a group that are being pushed to the edge, and this is something invited. Yeah, exactly. Invited to the edge. Powerfully invited to the edge. And there's something that, any amount of coaching, and people, maybe if you're not even a coach, like for people that are listening, with your significant other, you might tell them the sky is blue and they will argue with you. And then somebody else tells them the sky is blue and they're like, hey, did you know?
And they're telling
right?
you.
And you're like, right. We've had this conversation. All right, never mind. Okay, yes, sky's blue. I'm glad that you see that. And so that interaction happens a lot, and we certainly have that interaction within ourselves. So we can say, oh, well, I don't know. What do you really know about this? You don't know that the sky's blue. That's what you're seeing, but it seems like somebody else would have said it, right? So we can have this own internal conversation about that. And there's something about being in a group of your peers or people that you perceive as your peers and witnessing them overcome fears and step over edges and just take little leaps that you just couldn't imagine for yourself. And witnessing it to see the possibility is alarmingly useful. It's like, oh my God, it's inspiring, and it's such a tool to be able to harness. Like once you get it. And I think this is like at the root of what you were saying about surrounding yourself by the people, or with the people that you want to be like. You're like, oh man, I don't know how in the heck I got this business idea, but I just have no idea how I would get financing for it or whatever. And then you're hanging out with somebody that's like, well, I just went and got $7 million for this app. And you're like, okay, well, we've been hanging out. Like, I would consider we're on the same level, and you were able to do that. Now, why can't I? Yeah.
This is great. And this is where the tribe is so important, and is that instead of the conversations about this is awful and I can't and victim stories and disempowering languaging, is that when we're surrounding ourselves with people that are envelope pushers, that are saying, well, or that typically aren't, but they're facing their fears, and you're like, they don't know how to swim, but look at them swimming right now. And that it's infectious. That says this isn't somebody that had $1 million given to them by their grandfather that passed away. This is somebody that found a creative way, and we're the same. And I love hearing that, so that people are finding others that are going through the same process, whether it's I want to lose 100 pounds, or how the heck do you live without gluten. How do you do that? Like, what do you eat?
Totally.
And like, look at this brand. It has this brand. And we get to idea share, and there's inspiration. I say, well, damn, you lost 80 pounds? Oh my, if you can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
And I love that if you can do it, I can do it mentality when we're in a tribe that is stretching themselves. And this is where our growth happens, is outside of the safety of the zone of the known. And that being stretched, being uncomfortable is, and then our primal brain comes on and says, don't go out there, at the deep end. On the other side of that, the shark lives. And it's like, yeah, but the dolphins live there, and so does this beautiful underworld of paradise lives there too. And being able to navigate into the unknown and tap potential and face fears and meeting your edge is just so valuable. And I love that you guys do that in groups that kind of say, well, this is not just an Adonis firefighter that can swim to the buoy and back,
Yeah, well, and I think that nature is such a beautiful accomplice in this if we allow her to be, because I mean, there is such an amazing playground out there. And it's one thing to step into a world that you don't know, maybe in business, or you don't know, how to navigate certain things in your day-to-day life. But there's something about going up against a physical challenge or a challenge that involves a natural, part of it, like, a natural element, like whether it's surfing a wave or it's climbing a mountain. Like, there's something about, it's like it amplifies your ability to see yourself in a new way. And I just think that nature, and it's why we love to work with nature so powerfully in our company and invite people to really experience themselves up against nature and with her and overcoming fears, is that they're amplified into all other areas of their life.
That's the real key, is that if you are courageous or disciplined or joyful or positive in one area of their life, it carries over.
Totally.
And that's the real game changer about overcoming a fear of heights or fear of swimming. Or jumping off a cliff or something like that. I'm like all about this, and I'm all about. And I realized that I was doing that with my kids. Let's get you outside your comfort zone. Let's rock climb a little higher. Let's go into the ocean and go swim with dolphins with no life jacket, and that stretching that happens. Then I realized when I started taking them into the adventures, I'm like, oh, geez, I'm doing it too. Oh, my God. We're rappelling down this 200-foot thing. And you can't see the bottom. Like, oh, I forgot that I'm doing this. Or we're jumping out of a plane. I'm like, I was so busy focusing on giving you an adventure. Like, oh, geez, I'm about to jump out of a plane. But it does give us confidence in other areas to face our fears. Absolutely. And I think that that's so valuable, because we will, if we're growing, whether it's a relationship edge of, hey, our relationship's getting stale or stagnant, the fear might be having a courageous conversation that says, let's try something different. Or, hey, we're not having the returns that we need, in the business, or this isn't working. How do we have the courageous discussions to change things, or to face a reality, or to innovate rather than to ignore? And this way we get back into the driver's seat of our lives. And it doesn't feel like we don't have any choices, that I just have to stay in a career that doesn't fit me, or I just have to stay with this diagnosis and not change it, or that I just have to eat what my family eats because nobody's going to eat like I eat. And there's freedom in that. And that doesn't mean that in the unknown that you won't have to face fear after fear after fear. But this is what's wonderful about having coaches to say, let's just take it one step at a time. And learning how, one of my biggest fears was drowning as a kid, because I was held under the water a few times by family members for their pure joy. And for some reason, I had a fear of drowning.
Yeah, weird.
I know, so like my story. And I was like, okay, I'm going to learn how to scuba dive. And those first couple weeks of just being even in a pool with a regulator on, I'm like, where's the oxygen? And I was literally in so much physical, because my story was, I need oxygen, and and I needed to heal the deeper part. But the letting go of the fear of I'm afraid of drowning, and allow myself to say, I love swimming in the ocean, has allowed me to swim with dolphins and whales and swim in some of the most beautiful oceans in the world, and snorkel in the deep blue, and free dive down to more than 100 feet. And awesome. That helped me overcome that fear. And when you do that in one area, you're like, well, I can do anything. Yeah. It might take me a while to learn how to do this, or to hike a 15er, a $15,000 foot pass. But it can be done one step at a time. Oh, yeah. 1 pound at a time, one choice at a time.
It reminds me of actually a really good friend of ours, one of our best friends. We were swimming in the British Virgin Islands, and she was talking about, I wish I could swim. I wish I could swim better. I don't feel super comfortable in the water. I just use so much energy when I'm swimming. And I was like, why? And she just said, we were literally swimming while she did it. And she said, I don't know. And I was like, just roll on your back and put your head up. And she's like, oh my God, I float.
Sometimes we just need a technique,
right?
Yeah. Or somebody that this is where coaching comes in, or somebody that knows how to swim to say, hey, let's make it really simple. Right. Or that knows how to go to the gym and say, let's make it really simple. Yeah. We put the pin here, and you sit here and you adjust it here, and this is all. We're gonna pick up that weight, and that's it. The super easy. So easy. And this is what happens as far as the fear of that. The process fear is going to be difficult, or I'm not going to know how to do it. And this is where somebody having a fitness coach or an adventure coach or a mindset coach comes in handy, because they can say, hey, here's this little tool to make it easier. Just roll over on your back. You're like, damn, I would have never found that.
I've never known.
Or, hey, here's this way. You can use this regulator, and you can actually go 80 feet under the surface of the ocean, and you're going to be okay.
And we are like in the coolest time. There are so many coaches. I mean, there are more coaches now than ever. So, like, find your person. Yes. Find your person that you resonate with, that speaks to you, that you love. Like, they're out there waiting for you.
In the area that you want, because there's coaches for different things.
Yes.
And also that are achieving the results that you want.
Yes.
Because if the shoe in a career or in a lifestyle isn't fitting anymore, like we were talking about with the firefighting, well, then I remember when I was in corporate with a bob and a suit and heels and all of that in New York City many years ago, working for a Big Six accounting and consulting firm. That fit me then, but when I was looking at the role models, I'm like, what other women, what do they look like? I'm like, ooh, Medusa. That is not necessarily somebody who is successful in one term, in one measure, but not in family or relationships or nice even. So also when you're looking and seeking that out, find people that are achieving the results that you're looking for. And they might be fantastic in fitness and not know spirituality. Well, then they may not be your spiritual coach, but go for them for your fitness needs or whatever.
Find your people.
Find your people. Yeah, that's
it's one of the things I think is super interesting about the time that we're in now, and in the fire department, the new guys coming in, right, the rookies. It's just endless the amount of abuse that those guys take. Not even so much like hazing and that kind of stuff, but it's just a total lack of understanding of the difference between generations, right? So you've got. When I first started, I was 19, I think, when I first got hired. And I worked for guys that were 65-year-old, Vietnam vets, like had careers before Vietnam, went to Vietnam and came back kind of guys, and they didn't understand the priorities in my life, and that has just definitely just keeps happening, So when I was that guy and had 19-year-old kids that are coming to work, they have completely different perspectives and completely different ideas about what goes on. And one of the things that the common complaints that we would get about these damn millennials, was the kind of things that they don't know what they want. These guys are, they're just here and they're doing this job, but they're doing 7 other things and they've got all of this going on. And there was some valid points to that, right? Not fitting necessarily into that paradigm. But for my own journey, secretly, I'm like, yeah, man, I don't really fit here either, But the thing that I think is incredible about it and the world that we're living in now is that there's so much to do and there's so many opportunities and we're so blessed to have this myriad job paths and things you can create for yourself and kill it. That the kids these days, are taking the time. And they're not getting hung up in the paradigms of the past. And they're looking and they're saying, yeah, okay, I get it. I see what you did. I see that. But, I'm going to take some time and figure it out for myself. And that didn't happen when I was a kid.
Take a gap year.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, wow, look, there's a job.
I'm going to go find myself. You're like, what?
You're right there.
Okay, you've had 3 minutes. Now to get back to work.
I know, yeah, exactly. Well, I know where you are right now and I know where you should be, and that's at work. So, get it together. Yeah, so I'm optimistic for the trajectory. Yeah, people getting to choose, being able to choose.
I feel like I have kids that are 22 right now, and my daughter was she's graduating. They're both graduating college, and when she was entertaining job offers, she's like, "Look, I'm not going to go sit in a box under fluorescent lights in a city that I know no one and don't love just for money."
Yeah.
To work for a big company. I'm like, damn girl, who's your mama?
Yeah.
Because she really gets that. Her lifestyle is important.
Right.
And my son too, he's like, I want to do what I love.
Yeah.
I want to do what I love. And I don't, and the choices that he's made and unmade is like, this doesn't fit me any longer. I don't want to play this game any longer. I don't want to be in this relationship. It doesn't fit me any longer. He's so capable of letting go of things before their expiration date. I'm like, wow, I've been a little clingy, and they're inspiring me. The younger ones are, because they are more connected to that authenticity we were talking about earlier, and they're not afraid to listen to that and honor that, which is super awesome. This has been so cool and so juicy. And okay, so you're going to be hearing this after the other podcast where I was on with Adam and Vanessa. We just had some amazing conversation.
Yes.
So you got to tune in.
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
We covered codependency and core healing and trust and safety and
we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, we covered a lot of
ground.
There was a lot of pearls that we both all 3 of us collectively shared on that. So go check out their podcast on Be the Wellness. And that's their Instagram as well, is BEE, like the bee, Be the Wellness. And so go check out our conversation about that, because on the tail end of that epic podcast, we talked about animal spirit guides, and so we promised we would pick cards, and so we're gonna share a quick animal spirit. We're each gonna pick an animal spirit card, because we were talking about how we can leverage animal spirit guidance for insight and perspective and guidance. Vanessa, what'd you get?
I got the condor.
Ooh.
Yeah. Cycles, reflection, perspective, and release.
Right, and you're headed to Peru. Not surprising.
Yeah.
You'll get the animal spirit. Have you ever seen a condor in the wild?
We did.
Yeah.
Last 2 years ago, actually, we were on the pass in Salcatay, and we saw one. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Really, really powerful.
One of the times when I was in Peru, and we were in Pisac at the Temple of the Sun there.
Oh, nice.
And we were doing we do a chakra at each of the spaces each day, and we were doing the crown, and so I was doing a guided meditation, summoning Great Spirit, and literally, like right over my head, over the whole group, this big condor flies.
Oh, so cool.
So
they're very majestic.
The flight of the condor. Very nice. So for those listening, condor in your life, how can you rise above? How can you find and meet and access your spiritual guidance and spread your wings way more fully and unbind them from the fears and the edges that have stories and the addictions and the patterns or the tribe that's holding you back? And where can you unbind your wings and fly high like the condor? Wait, it comes with sounds.
It does, dude.
It comes with animal sounds. Cool, Adam. What did you get?
I got the salmon.
Oh,
Salmon.
Salmon.
Faith, determination, independence, and change.
yes.
Which is on point.
Right? And how do you think that relates? Why is salmon, especially because we're talking about facing your fears, why do you think the salmon's so valuable for those listening when you're talking about facing change and fear?
Well, their entire existence depends on change, drastic change.
Yes.
From a river to an ocean to a river.
Yep.
You know.
And going upstream.
Yeah. With bears.
Yeah. Right?
It's a whole deal.
But they have the soul's calling, and so this card is for all of us too. Is when you feel that calling where you just have to go where you got to go.
Yeah.
You know, and it's who you'll become along the way of returning back to your home, which is, you know, your truest, authentic self. Fantastic. Yeah. The salmon. I got the koala. He's so cute.
They are cute.
Oh my gosh. Calm, perspective, imagination, and ease. Transformation and growth does not have to be difficult. Yeah. It can be adventurous and playful. We can do it with other like-minded people. We can laugh at our attachments, and we can honor our emotions, and we can also do this whole thing with peace and perspective and calm. And so there's the koala bear, you know? So to our brothers and sister koalas that are reestablishing new territory in Australia and finding new ways to stay calm after the storm and after the fires. We will all go through transformational fires and returning to the calm again and again and starting over again after the fires of transformation.
Amen.
Awesome. Okay, you guys, this has been epic. Tell everybody where they can find you and a quick drop about what's coming up.
Be the Wellness is the central hub, of course, beethewellness.com. We have a trip to Peru, which is actually sold out. So the next trip after that, which we still have a few spaces in, is New Zealand. We do an epic 10-day adventure, really traveling the North Island of New Zealand, which is... Have you been to New Zealand?
I haven't yet.
It is heaven.
Is calling that.
Shire, yes. That's where it is.
You might need to come with us, actually. I'm like, actually. So we've got New Zealand coming up. We've got our Bee Fest event, which is our bigger community event in Zion, which is going to be beautiful. And that is what we call, it's a wellness retreat with a festival vibe. So we're hiking in the park. We've got farm-to-table meals, and then we've got evening entertainment and bands and just really awesome, epic, fun, pleasure. Let's do the damn thing.
Yes, count me in. Yeah. And, for those of you that are, wanting more tribe, this is a great place to start, is to listen to the conversations on the podcast, go to the festival in Zion, and if you feel called, go to New Zealand. Reach out. This tribe is here for you. And maybe this tribe is here with just some inspirations. Maybe it's a tool. Maybe it's a conversation where you don't feel alone. Maybe it's with some coaching or an immersive experience that can help you return back to the confidence inside and slay your dragons and ride your dolphins. Thanks each of you for everything that you're doing and for the work that you guys continue to do so that you can be pillars of light and work in a conscious relationship together in a business that's making a difference and modeling that for other people, that it's possible.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us. It's been a beautiful 24 hours, really.
Yes, I know. It's been a pleasure. Yeah. So please, if you have really enjoyed this conversation, please like it. Please share it. Give us a rave review. It really helps when you give us your comments, and it really helps us to share these conversations. So I always value your time and energy, and thank you for staying with us today. Please take a moment to go on to the podcast, Shamangelic Healing Podcast, and give us some stars and give us a rave review. That really helps. And know that we, this community, and we're just 3 and there's many more, are here to support your healing and your awakening. So thank you for spending time with us today. And as always, you'll find me on shamangelichealing.com. Abundant resources between the podcast and coaching and live events. And so we are always here to support you. So get the support that you need for the journey that you are saying yes to. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Go forth and shine.